Cool. So today's training is on just the rental application process in general, whether you're receiving one or whether you're submitting one, just kind of the best practices, etc. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Perfect. Okay. Hold on. Okay. So what we want to go ahead and do is there's two situations. Either you're representing a landlord or you're representing a tenant. It's pretty simple. I know in our Orange County market, we do a lot of them. We do about 50 units a year with landlords and tenants. It's a very prevalent and populated rental market. And we've done 50 transactions on average year for, I believe, almost 10 consecutive years. We've done this almost. So we've done about 500 of these over the past 9 years. So the biggest thing is that when you're representing a tenant or a landlord, that the more documentation, the better. So on the Google Drive training folder as of right now, or wherever our training folder may be, under the docs-leases, you want to click on that, and then you'll see two things. You'll see a rental application. There's one that's just the application itself. So in this application package, just PDF that opens up, it's pretty much a cover sheet and everything that a tenant wants to know, right? So when representing tenants, we want to send this to them. And the reason why is because it just gives them a head start and a complete package. So they have to complete.
Salvador, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I don't see your screen, so I'm not sure you're sharing it.
Let me see. Hold on. Let me see where to go. Yeah, I'm sharing my screen right now. Don, do you see my screen?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay. That's something on.
I see it now.
Okay, cool. So back to the application package. So number one, we have to have them submit a complete lease application for everybody over 18 years old, and that's attached to this 2-page document right here. Then proof of income. So if they're paycheck stubs, if they're W-2, it's simple, paycheck stubs or their W-2. If they're self-employed, possible bank statements, canceled checks, tax returns. Number 3 is a personal letter, basically, who you are as a tenant, so the landlord doesn't just judge you based off some numbers. Number 4 is a credit report. Now, we used to pull credit report in-house, but it was a hard inquiry, and it was just nothing I wasn't excited to do anymore. So we have tenants pull their own credit report. Credit Check Total is one of the sites that are out there, but any one of these Credit Karma, Credit Check Total, these websites, they can pull all 3 credit scores and the credit history is what you want. The problem with a lot of these websites that are public and they're called soft pulls, so they don't charge you an inquiry, is that if you sign up on one of these websites, automatically they enroll you in their credit monitoring program of $12, $15, $30 a month. So if these tenants pull that, make sure they know that to cancel out of that program if they don't want that. And then number 5 is obviously a complete copy of their driver's license or IDs. Okay, so I'll show you this. This is the actual application package that you want to send them in PDF format, and we also have the application in right here in this folder in type format. So if you look at this that just popped up, so in case somebody wants to just type in 123 Elm Street, we have a type in version as well that we created and that we're working on. So you can send them both and they can handwrite it or they can type it in depending on their preference. So since we all have in LA, OC, everywhere, we have some rental listings going on, I thought that would be a good topic to go over. So number 1, let's just say for the sake of today, when representing a landlord, okay, what should we do? And then at the same time, we'll talk about this. So I know Robert's got a rental listing right now, and Albert actually submitted a rental application on his property. So what Albert actually already went ahead and did, which is something that we already do when writing an offer for a buyer on a sale listing, is kind of the same thing. Albert did a great job. Robert, below you'll find the attachment, which contains my client's applications for the address, and he bullet points what they're all about: FICO, income, move-in date, everything right in here. This is pretty much a great example of how you should submit an application package. Some of us do it slightly different, yet the objective is still the same. You're detailing your client. You're not just saying, hey, application attached, call me. You don't want to do that. So it's very thorough. Now, what Robert should be doing is, as a listing agent representing a landlord, is you want to just quickly review the application, because it's the listing agent's obligation to A, receive the application, B, just send it to the owner as soon as possible, like they would an offer on a listing for sale, and then quickly scrub the application package for the most part. So the main things you want to look at from an application is how many occupants are there any pets? So on this application, for example, pets, they have one, right? How many applicants are going to be living in there? It's going to be 2 people. So this gentleman and his sister are going to live with him. Another section is right here, any unlawful detainers, which are evictions, bankruptcies, felonies. No. Current resident history. So they've lived at this current property in Sylmar since 2012, and it's an apartment complex, and they're moving because of the location. So one thing you want to quickly do as a listing agent on behalf of your investor is to call this number, 818-367-7404, verify this gentleman that's been living there. How long have they been living there? Have they been late on their rent? And how much are they paying? And then the next aspect is their employment and what are they making per year, which is, it says $55,000 a year just for this gentleman. Rule of thumb, as far as qualifying as a tenant, they want to be making 2.5 times the amount of the rent in gross income. So let's just say this rent is, what is this, 2,200? I don't think it's, yeah, 2,200. So 2,200, okay, times 2.5. So this gentleman wants to be making $5,500 in gross income per month, which is 66 grand for a year. That's just basic 101 apartments or private properties you want to base their income off of. So he makes 55 gross. So let's see if the sister makes any income. And then they have copies of any debt they have here, which you already see on their FICO, and then any funds that they have in the bank. At minimum, I mean, they have to have enough funds to be able to move in. And on this situation, 2,200 rent plus 2,200 security plus possibly key deposit. I mean, you got to have at least 4,500 to 5 grand in the bank to be able to pay for everything. So that's his application, his ID, and you want to scrub it. He's W-2, so he submitted his proof of income, which is perfect. And then his FICO score. And then the rest of his credit history. So we've all read FICOs. We all read our own credit reports, and they all come in different facets. Obviously, the score is important, but to assume that every tenant in Southern California is going to have a 700, 720 plus FICO is an unrealistic expectation for our investors. We will have some investors that they don't care. They want like the perfect tenant with 800 FICO, great income, or they'll let their home sit vacant for 4 months and not collect rent. It happens, but what you want to look at is what is their FICO score, but more importantly, their history. If people are paying their rent on time consistently and they're never late, but they have some collection accounts or they have some stuff going on, at least they take care of their shelter and their rent payment first, and then they manage with the rest of the income that they have. Ideally, you don't want to have somebody who's got multiple collection accounts, but depending on the property, depending on the location, depending on the price, it may be considered. And possibly the landlord may want a higher security deposit because they see that person as a higher risk. So you want to just kind of scrub the credit report to see if there's anything outstanding that would concern an owner. By the way, you've already sent this to the owner, and we recommend that they read this and see if they have any concerns that they want you to address. So that's this gentleman's FICO report overall. Then what we're going to need here is the sister's application. So the sister's application, same thing. She'd be living with her brother. They already said they had one dog. It looks like they may be living together, but you could check. I think they are. You can check her references as well. And then as far as her employment, it looks like she makes $25.23 per hour. So I'm not sure if she works full-time or not. Probably a great question to ask because he was making 55. He was making 55 per year, and he was short 11 grand. So I'm assuming at 25 an hour, even if she works part-time, combined, they make at least 2.5 times the rent amount in gross income. And then her FICO, the same thing. So you want to scrub this application package. Then you want to follow up with the landlord, and you want to talk to them and go over it and address any concerns that they may have. Then whether you submitted the application on behalf of the tenant or the other agent did, you want to get super clear on the terms. And the terms are simple. What price are they offering? Is it the list price or are they offering less? Number two, what's the soonest they're willing to move in? And then number three, are they offering a 12-month lease, which is the typical, right? Or longer, or whatever it may be. Then when you talk to the landlord, you want to go ahead and go over any concerns about the financial aspect of this tenant. Number two, you want to tell them what they're offering. And then number three, if the owner is great with all the terms, or if they want to counter the terms really quickly verbally, you go back to the tenant and or the tenant's agent and say, hey, you know what? The landlord is open to your tenant, but here's the terms that they want. Just like we negotiate a counteroffer for buyers and sellers in writing, we do the same thing with tenants and landlords verbally, because there's no counteroffer you want to do. So once the terms are agreed upon verbally, then at that point, you would send the application that's been accepted, the terms and conditions, all back to our office and our staff, and then they'll create within 24 hours to 48 hours the lease contract, disclosures, everything for the landlord to review. Then the landlord and tenant to sign, execute, and then they'll help facilitate the cashier's check drop-off, etc., keys. And since you're the agent on the ground as the listing agent, you will help facilitate dropping off cashier's checks, picking them up, coordinating that between landlord and tenant, facilitating keys. Very simple things. It might sound like a lot, yet it's very simple and can be very efficient. And while the staff at the office takes care of all the documentation to make sure everything is the way that the landlord wants it and the tenant's cool with to get it signed. So that's how you handle a landlord situation in regards to that. Now, the tenant side, when you're submitting an application, same thing. Imagine you're a buyer's agent. You're submitting an offer, an application, and the landlord's agent or listing agent has to negotiate. So you got to follow up, make sure it's being presented. And once again, when the landlord's agent or listing agent comes at you and says, hey, I like your application, but these are the terms and conditions that my client wants, then same thing, you verbally negotiate with your tenant. And then the listing agent is always responsible to draw up the contract disclosures and everything. Rarely does a listing agent make a tenant's agent do that. I've rarely done it in my career, but it's really the listing agent and the landlord that have to type up the contract and disclosures. So these are some of the best practices to focus on in regards to tenants, in regards to landlords. Like I said, we'll do 50, 60 a year, easy as far as units go, every single year like clockwork. And the one thing you want to look at is that when you help a tenant rent a property, go rent for 12 months, 18 months, 24 months. But depending on their situation, you're building your future database for future buyers. You have landlords that you're representing who are investors who own properties. They are your future sellers. We'll do anywhere from 4 to 7 sales transactions annually in our Orange County team from previous years' tenants and landlords. So it's always been a great lead pillar, so to say, for us in OC. I know the LA Inland Empire markets are definitely different than OC. So when they come up, work them efficiently, keep them on your database, keep in touch like anything else, like a past client, and they'll eventually send you referrals and then come back and buy or sell with you. So questions do you guys have that are on the call right now? Anything at all?
I have a couple questions, Albert.
Sure.
So I have a couple of clients. One is a self-employed who it's typical Hispanic. We have instead of putting in our bank, we have a mattress that we kind of filled it up.
Okay.
And so this client doesn't put his money, his cash that he has, into a bank account. So I'm trying to set up a package for him. In his account, doesn't have a lot of money, and so when I got a copy of his taxes, because he doesn't have a social security number, he has an ITIN number, so I cannot pull a credit report on him. Then I'm going to be using his bank statements to show funds and all that, but they're very limited. So so based on that, I think it's almost impossible to get a home for them, right?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. So let's take the next 5 minutes and talk about this. So if you saw my screen, I just pulled up in the same folder, right? Docs leases, under training folder, everything is under docs leases. So rental success phone script. The biggest thing is that like in Orange County, I'll tell you, I mean, I know you guys at this moment are bringing in a lot of tenant leads because there's a couple rental listings, but we always bring about 100 tenant leads a month in on average in Orange County. We've done that for a couple of years now, right? So we were forced to create a system to be able to take these inbound tenant leads, because if you get, let's say, 80 or 100 tenant leads, there's no way you can work with all of these people, right? So you got to pre-qualify them just like anything else. So this script allows you to pre-qualify them at a high level, right? And I'm going to skip a couple of the basic lines, and I'm going to go into number 10, which says, how's your credit income? And the reason why I asked this is because we're dealing with private owners here, and some of the landlords check credit and all income, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but I just want to make sure we're on the same page. So the biggest thing is, I'll tell you this. If they make cash and they can't show it in the bank and don't have a FICO score, it's pretty much a game over. We can't help them. We do what's called a soft letdown. A soft letdown in any situation where we can't work with the tenant is, listen, at this point, I completely understand your criteria. The landlords that we're currently working with right now, unfortunately, we wouldn't be able to get you approved as much as I would want to. But if we do come up with a property and or a landlord that can't accept your situation in the very near future, I have your information and I will be giving you a call. You do a soft letdown, and if a situation popped up and you can't help them, great. But with all due respect, you can't help this individual because of their situation. The only time I've been able to help people over the years where they're basically a cash-based business, and they either international clients, whatever it is, they just don't have FICO or have really bad FICO, is if they've been able to pay the entire 12 months of rent up front in cash or cashier's check. That's the only way. So if they can do that, that's the difference. I mean, here, $2,000 a month in rent, here's 24 grand tomorrow for the rest of the 12 months. Landlords will typically say yes to that because they're getting all the money up front. Okay. But otherwise, don't waste your time. Soft let down. So out of 100 tenants or 80 tenants that we generate monthly, our staff right now will literally qualify and agree to potentially work with anywhere from 7 to 10 of them. 90 of them they don't work with. 80 of them just don't work for whatever reason, right? And out of those 7 to 10 that they convert, the following month, they'll close 4 to 5 of them.
Okay.
Like anything else, we have a system, right? So we have a script. So I know you guys are getting some tenant leads right now. So I would challenge you to, no matter how they're being dispersed and who's calling them between Adon, Albert, Eric, and obviously Robert, I would use these scripts. And I know currently we're using one of our virtual assistants to call some of these tenants, because that's what we do. They all come to our virtual assistant and they call and they qualify them and they pass them on to the team. But the biggest thing is this, okay? Let me add one more thing. This question is money. This question is money, and unfortunately, when I was doing tenants, because remember, before I built this team, I was doing about 12 sales a year, okay? But I was also by myself doing about 50 to 60 rentals a year as well with 12 sales, okay? And I came up with a script, and what I would ask them is the following, number 11. Let me ask you, if you could buy now, would you? And it goes on. But these tenants are, if you ask them that question, you'd be surprised. 1 out of 10 might say, you know what? If I could, I would. I'm on a month-to-month. I don't have to move right now, but I don't know if I can qualify. Then you take them down the script. I know Robert's in the past 2 years, I think sold, don't quote me, but I think anywhere from 1 to 3 properties he's closed escrow on from tenants that have come in initially as tenants on his properties, but he flipped them to buyers. And we've already done 3 in the past 12 months or 14 months in Orange County as well, from what I can recall. So it's an opportunity to turn them into instant buyers if you can as well, if you think they can qualify and they're open to it. But if they're like already give their 30-day notice and they got to move in 7 days, forget about it. They're not going to buy, right? They got to move. They need shelter. So answer your question, Mr. Albert?
Yeah, you did. Now, sometimes I get a lot of questions. Says, do you have a program where we rent to own? And I'm not sure if we do, but I haven't seen any like that.
Yeah, I get that all the time, right? So watch this. Those are called rent to owns, or those are called lease options. They're called working documents. That means whatever a tenant and a landlord agree to, they can put in writing and agree to it. But a typical lease option or rent to own works like this. A tenant's going to rent this property for the next 12 months, and they are going to pay $2,000 a month. That means I'm going to pay you, landlord, $24,000 in the next 12 months. At the end of the 12 months, I have an option to buy your property at agreed upon price of $300,000. And out of the $24,000 in rent that I paid you, let's say, for example, we agree that half of that, which is $12,000, will go towards my purchase of $300,000. Get it? The whole point is that they think that if they could do a lease option or a rent to own, that means I'm not just throwing my rent away. Part of it's going to go towards a future purchase. In all these years, I have never completed in my career a lease option before. I've had some that have happened. I actually have one right now on one of my listings for sale that I'm putting together a counter offer this morning on a potential lease option. But the property is $1.1 million. If this guy's going to agree to it, he's got to put a $50,000 non-refundable deposit immediately. I mean, there's very crazy terms that have to happen, right? Mm-hmm. So it's very complicated. So what I would tell them, and I've always had this in my career because I've generated thousands of rental leads and I've talked to thousands of tenants, and I'd say 10 or 15% ask me that question. I say, Mr. and Mrs. Tenant, I get it. Unfortunately, rent-to-owns are needles in haystacks. Do they exist? Yes. I rarely ever see them. But two things are going to happen. Either you're going to rent a property as a tenant normally in the next 12 months, or you're probably going to buy. That's really the only way I see this happening. Because typical rent-to-owns on Craigslist, anywhere else, 9 times out of 10, they actually are scams. So you want to be very careful. And that's what I tell them. Once again, if they really want that, soft let down. Hey, if we find an opportunity for you, great. Otherwise, I wish you the best of luck. Okay. Biggest thing I want to talk to you guys about with tenants is that you have to be hyper efficient. Same thing with landlords, right? You got to be very efficient because obviously the commission that we receive when it comes to rental transactions on average is like 1/10 of a sales commission. Just so we're clear in my history. So our average commission for gross commission, not just like what I would make after splits and things like that, but our gross commission in OC rentals is about $900 gross commission. Okay. Our sales are, let's say, $9,000 GCI total gross, right? 2.5% of 400 or whatever. So when you're getting 1/10 of the commission, you have to be super efficient in who you work with. Any tenants that you agree to work with in LA or OC, you better make sure that they're 100% qualified, right? You know you can get them a house in 2 to 3 weeks. You don't have to show them 40 properties, and that they're pretty solid applications, so it's a slam dunk in negotiations. Otherwise, you could have 7 tenants you're working with, horrible FICO, no money. You're going to show all 7 of them 150 properties, waste so much gas, all of your time, take your focus away from the sales business, and make $100 if you're lucky. I've done this. That's why I'm saying it. Okay? It can be very lucrative and a very efficient business to make quick cash, but build your database for future sales business if it's done correctly. If not, hand it off to somebody else. There's really no other way, right? But I know you guys can think efficiently because you got some leaders that are efficient people that will teach you to do so. And you guys in general already are efficient people the way you think with your schedules, right? But I want to make sure you make minor tweaks. And the biggest thing is with these tenants, man, I have a heart for everybody and I want to help them out. But if I really can't help them out, why would I get their hopes up? Why would I waste their time when they can possibly go to an apartment, fill out a 2-page application, don't even get anything checked as far as income goes, and get qualified in 5 minutes or not, rather than a private condo or a private house. So I will tell them, go to an apartment. That's probably in your best interest. Because property managers on private properties or listing agents on private properties, they're probably going to turn you down every time. Cool?
Yep.
So,
sounds good.
Yeah, take it just and use this. But any questions, let us know and let Robert know. And because we're always going to have, as we grow, we're going to have more investors that we're going to sell properties to. And then what we're going to tell them is, hey, listen, we have a great service that we can go ahead and get your property in the market for rent, help you find a tenant, and then you can manage the property. So
I do want to say though, I didn't come up with the format. I stole it from Michael, so I'm sure Michael got it from you or from somebody there, but I stole it from Michael.
Yeah, currently Michael and Tammy run our entire rental business in OC. They do all 50 units, right? I'll do the landlord, some of them, don't get me wrong, but the rest of the team handles it. So the way it works right now, all the inbound tenant leads goes to Tony, our current virtual assistant. He goes through the script. Once he sees who's qualified, then he passes them along in Boomtown, tags Tammy and Michael, and then Tammy sets up the portal on the MLS with all the rental properties. She shows them all of the properties, okay? And then once they're ready, Michael already has talked to them about their application package, has their application package ready to go. And then Michael's the one that submits the application, negotiates that, and then it goes back to Tammy actually now, and she wraps up the contract, she wraps up the disclosures and things like that. So for us, it's a good system that works because OC is just a different animal. LA, what I've realized, it's not something we want to create out there because in the San Fernando Valley, there's not that many homes on the market on the MLS for rent like there is in OC. Like imagine just as many homes that are for sale in OC, there's just as many rental listings. That's how crazy it is.
Yeah, I've noticed doing some portals for a few of my clients that the inventory is very limited.
It is, and me and Robert learned that the hard way 2 years ago. So, but when we get rental listings, it's cool because they're investors of ours, buyers of ours, whatever, and we want to help them, and we provide a great service, and we can earn $300, $400, $500, $600, $700, $800, whatever it is, and we can generate some tenant leads, which could be buyers, and keep our client satisfied, etc. But it's always got to be done efficiently, otherwise it could be a massive waste of time.
So, so on our side, if I'm representing the owner, the landlord, when he selects the package of the candidate, I send it to Suhaila. Is that who we send it to, or who do we send it to create the contract?
Yeah. So as of right now, it goes to Suhaila and to Tammy. Tammy's the one that's actually drawing them up.
Okay.
So she now works. She's a showing assistant, but also 20 hours a week. She's actually in the office handling the rental business in general. So she's taking that over administration-wise.
Okay.
So we're taking that off Sue's plate right now. So, but yeah, that's what I would do. In the meantime, just send it to Sue, Tammy, and then they'll facilitate, and then they'll get you involved where they need you involved with any communication, and they'll keep you posted. But typically from when the lease is negotiated verbally between buyer and tenant, tenant, landlord, and agents, everything should be wrapped up within 72 hours from that moment as far as contract disclosure signed, and at least a cashier's check for the security deposit so they can lock in the lease, and then everything else can get figured out later.
Okay.
Cool? Okay, guys. Have a good day.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.